Hi guys. Today we're going to be working on a super chunky neck warmer, and it's really a pretty simple repetitive pattern. There is a written copy of the pattern in a link in the description below if you prefer that over a video tutorial, or if you'd like to follow along with it or print it off, have it as a reference. It is available there in my Etsy shop, and the link is in the description below. But let's go ahead and get started here with this pattern. This is a full project video tutorial for this pattern. So all you're going to need is a pair of scissors, your yarn needle, a 10mm crochet hook, any chunky yarn. It's not like we're working on a hat or a headband or leg warmers or sweater or something like that where the sizing needs to be precise. So it's okay if your yarn is a little more or less chunky than mine. So any chunky yarn is fine. And we are going to begin with our starting loop. So I'm going to try and make a point of sort of going over each stitch and each step a little slowly for the first one, so that I'm trying to make it so my videos, anyone can follow them, but I do have to keep the pace going. So I won't be able to completely slow down for every single stitch. If there's any stitch that you get stuck on that you want a little more focus on, go ahead and check out the stitch tutorials in my channel where I focus on specific stitches, okay? Or you can always rewind back a little bit and just re-watch what I'm doing here. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna do our starting loop. The way I do it is I just wrap my yarn around my finger and cross it over like this. Pick up that little bottom piece and push just a bit of the top piece through. Go ahead and get that on your hook, and we're going to begin with a chain of 25. So yarn over your hook and pull it through the loop. Yarn over and pull through the loop. Okay, so you're just going to keep on going until you've done that 25 times and then come back. So you can pause the video, finish your chain 25, and then come back. Okay, so now that you've finished your chain row, we are going to begin row 1 of our pattern. So working in the second chain from the hook, so here's the first one there, that's our second chain. We're going to do a half double crochet. So you're going to yarn over your hook, push it through the chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. You've now got 3 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so that's a half double crochet. In our next chain, we're going to do a slip stitch. So you're going to push your hook through that chain, yarn over and pull right through both loops on your hook. And that's a slip stitch. So we are going to go ahead and just alternate between those 2 stitches, half double crochet, slip stitch. And we're going to do that. Sorry, I'm just pulling up a little more yarn here. We're going to continue alternating between these 2 stitches all the way down the row until you get to the end. So you can go ahead, pause the video, work on your alternating stitches until you get to the very end, and then come back. Okay, so now that you've finished that row of alternating between your half double crochets and your slip stitches, and you're at the end of the row, before we go ahead and start the next row, I just want to mention one thing to you for your stitch counting. So because we started with 25 in our chain, but we began our first row working in the second chain from the hook. If you're trying to do counting your stitches to keep on track, just make a note that you should be at 24 stitches now, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and start row number 2. So chain 1 and turn your work. So in this next row, we are going to be working our half double crochets in every slip stitch from the previous row. And we're going to work a slip stitch in every half double crochet from the previous row. And that's called a moss stitch. So in the pattern, you might, if you have the written pattern, you might see where I say moss stitch or continue on with your moss stitch. It just means the alternating with half double crochets and slip stitches. And keep in mind that it's supposed to go alternating as I just mentioned. So we're going to work, this is a slip stitch from the previous row. So we're going to start with a half double crochet in that slip stitch. And this is a half double crochet from the previous row. So that's where we'll work our slip stitch. And you're just going to keep on alternating all the way down between your half double crochets and your slip stitches. All the way down and then come back. Okay, so now that you've gotten to the end of that row, you're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. So now you've finished row 1 and 2. For row 3 and 4, you're going to continue on with this moss stitch that we've just been working on. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and pause the video to work on 2 more rows. And you're going to be continuing on with your moss stitch. So you're going to be working your half double crochets in the slip stitches from the previous row and your slip stitches in the half double crochets from the previous row. So go ahead and do that. Make sure that at the end of your rows, you chain 1 and turn your work, and go ahead and work that for the next 2 rows and then come back. Okay, so now that you have finished those rows, we are now about to start row number 5, and this is where it changes a little bit because we're going to now work on our bobble stitch row. And so what you're going to do is yarn over your hook and push your hook in your first stitch there, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2. Yarn over, push your hook back in that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now you've got 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2. Okay. One more time, we're going to yarn over, push our hook still in that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through the first 2. So now you've got 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull right through all 4. Okay? In that next stitch there, we're going to do a slip stitch. All right. Now in the next stitch, we're going to do another bobble. And you're just going to go ahead and keep on alternating your stitches like this all the way down the row. Okay, so you've done that 3 times, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, slip stitch in the next. All right. So go ahead, if you flip it over, you can already see your bobbles. I love the look of this texture. Okay, so go ahead and just keep on working that, alternating between your bobble stitch, slip stitch, bobble stitch, slip stitch, all the way down till you get to the end and then come back. Okay, so now that you've finished your bobble row, you're gonna work row 6 till 10. So 5 rows in total, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You are gonna work your moss stitch. So because we're working into our bobble row, I'm just gonna work the first couple with you guys to show you how it should be looking. So we're gonna work our half double crochets into our slip stitches from the previous row. And we're going to treat the top of our bobble stitch. So you'll find like the bobble kind of pushes forward. So you'll see the stitch a little bit further back. And that's what we're going to treat our bobble stitch as though it was a half double crochet from the previous row, just to kind of keep in, to give some kind of reference for your moss stitch. Okay. So you're going to work your slip stitch on top of each bobble and your half double crochet in the slip stitch between each bobble. All right. So you're going to go ahead and just work those moss stitch rows for 5 rows in total. So row 6 till 10. And don't forget, you got to chain 1 at the end of each row before you turn your work. And then come back and I will show you how to go ahead and work on row number 11. Okay, so now that you have finished those 5 rows of moss stitch, we are going to do another bobble row. And then this pattern basically is going to repeat like this, where you're doing a bobble stitch row and then 5 moss stitch, a bobble stitch row, 5 moss stitch. Okay, it's going to repeat like that until you finish row 47. So this project should have a total of 47 rows. You might want to grab a stitch marker. If you'd like to see what my favorite stitch markers are, you can go ahead and click the link in the description below, or use whatever stitch markers that you like. If you need help with keeping track. with your rows. This one is a pretty easy one to keep track of because a bobble is a pretty good indicator. That's one row and you know you've got 5 in between. Okay, so I'm going to go and work on this. I'm going to show you a couple bobbles really quick to refresh your memory on the bobble stitch, because I know we've only focused on one row of that and we've done a lot of the moss stitch. So I'm going to do a couple more bobble stitches with you, and then I'm going to let you go ahead and work your project until you've completed row 47. And that's when you'll come back to me in this video and I'll show you how to finish off your work. But let me go ahead and do a couple of bobble stitches with you before you leave. So yarn over your hook, push it into your stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2. You're going to do that 2 more times into the same stitch. And you've got 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 4. You might have seen me do this. I always like to just give it a little push to really make that bobble pop. And then of course we're going to do our slip stitch in the next. Oops, sorry guys, I let go of that completely right there. And you're going to do another bobble, which I'll do with you one more. So yarn over, put your hook in the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2. Repeat that step 2 more times in the very same stitch there. Okay. So you've done it 3 times in total and you've got 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull right through all 4, and then your slip stitch. Okay, so like I said, so this is row 11 that you're working on right now. You are going to keep on working this pattern, alternating with 1 bobble stitch row, 5 moss stitch, a bobble stitch row, 5 moss stitch. You're going to keep on going until you have finished on a bobble stitch row, and that row should be 47. And then come on back to this video and I will show you how to finish off your project. Okay, so now that you have finished all of your beautiful 47 rows, do you love the texture of this? I love it so much, and I love a chunky yarn pattern. Okay, so what we need to do right now to finish off our project is we need to fold it, but we want to fold it so our work is inside out, because we're going to be creating a seam. So you're going to fold it and just line up your 2 edges and hold it however you're comfortable. You know, it's really funny, you guys. I have been so criticized for the way I hold my hook, the way that I hold my yarn. And you know what? I gotta tell you that I'm self-taught, probably as many of you are from watching on YouTube. Believe it or not, that's how I learned too. My grandmother crocheted forever and ever and ever. She did not have the patience to teach me. It is hard to teach someone in person though. I can't lie. I've had people ask me and I'm like, watch my videos. But anyway, so I have just figured out how to hold my yarn the first few videos I ever watched, and I gotta admit, I also don't do it probably because I hold mine different than most people. I've actually only just started holding my hook properly. I actually used to hold it like this, and the amount of people that would criticize me for it, I got so self-conscious. I'm like, you know what, guys? I hold my yarn like this. Leave me alone. I'm not changing it. So anyway, don't worry about how I fold my work and get this started. If you have a different way that is comfortable for you, just go for it. Bottom line is we just need to line up these rows, and we're going to close a beautiful seam here with slip stitches all the way down. So go ahead and get that started off by just push your hook right through the first 2 to line them up and pull your little loop right on through. Okay, and now you're just going to do your absolute best in slip stitching all the way down, being sure to line up your stitches evenly on both sides to create a seam here to close it up, obviously, right? Because that would be an awfully short scarf, but it is a perfect cowl neck warmer. I love it. So go ahead and keep on working your slip stitches all the way down and then come back. Okay, so after you finish that very last slip stitch, you're just going to pull a little excess yarn through. to give yourself a long tail to work with, to sew in the ends. And just grab your scissors, give that a cut. And we are going to use our yarn needle to weave in the ends. A little trick to how to thread your yarn needle a bit easier is I just fold it over and just pull it real tight like that, and then just comes right through. Isn't that cool? Okay, so all that you're gonna do is go ahead and just weave that in and out. I just go right back down the seam for something like this. You know, just to secure it. And you're basically done. Just go ahead and do that with the other tail end on the other side, and you're done your super chunky neck warmer. I hope that you enjoyed this pattern and this video tutorial. Please definitely, you know, give me a like. Please subscribe to my channel. All that love is very, very much appreciated. Oh man, I just got it in the knot. So yeah, please go ahead, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and have a look at the links in the description below. There's some really, really helpful stuff in there. I just share some of my favorite supplies that I use, like the stitch markers that I like to use, and yarn and whatnot. And to be honest with you, pretty much everything that I buy, I get off of Amazon, especially these days. It comes right to your door. And depending on where you are, if you're experiencing lockdowns in this COVID time, it's really nice to be able to just order online. And with Prime, you get it like the next day, sometimes even the same day, depending on the time that you order. So anyway, you guys, there you go. It's done. I hope you love it. Take care, you guys. Have a blessed, safe, happy, healthy new year. And again, please don't forget to subscribe.